Hi, Startup Vision. I'm Carlos Diaz. I'm a repeat founder, and I'm also the general partner of Diaspora Ventures and the Refiners.
Hello,
Okay.
Carlos. Thank you so much for being with us here on Startup Vision TV. So you are the co-founder with Ilan Abeacera of a new VC fund called Diaspora Venture. I love the
Mm-hmm.
name. It's so relevant, so clear. And when we see the trend, usually, usually it's people, French startup coming from abroad and trying to develop their business here in the US and scale up in the US, and you do it differently. So tell us about it and give us some example of your new investments, what sectors.
Yeah. So basically, what we are doing different, I think, so is that we focus on two type of French entrepreneurs. The first type of French entrepreneur we are focusing on is um, French entrepreneurs already based in the US. Um, Actually, 10 years ago, a lot of people, many people came from France to the US, not only to create a French restaurant or to work for Google or to work for Facebook, but really to create their own startup. And so we have in the US uh, people that are willing, to create their own startup, that they won't create their startup in France anymore because they want to target, the US market. And there is this diaspora of French entrepreneurs in the US, and nobody's helping them, right now. France is not helping them because they're not in France anymore. And American people are going to help them, but not at the beginning. So we want to be the first partner for these people, French entrepreneurs based in the US that are creating their first or maybe their second startup in the US. The second type of entrepreneurs we are very, very interested in, and that's something I'm very excited about, is that I think that there is in France a new generation of entrepreneurs that are very, very, very interesting. They are French, they're based in France, but they incorporate their company from day one in the US, most of the time in the Delaware. They speak English. They have teams remote all over the world. They're targeting the US market first, but maybe they will never be in the US. What, by the way, I think it's a very interesting point for Trump, that want to limit, the number of French people in the US, but we don't care. We don't need your visa anymore because we have this new generation of French entrepreneurs in France targeting the US, incorporating in the Delaware that might not be in the US, at least, at the beginning of their project. And Diaspora Ventures really want to help also this new generation of French entrepreneurs in France, targeting the US, speaking English, incorporated in the Delaware.
So after being an entrepreneur yourself, you built a seed fund called the Refiners to help international founders develop in the US. And with the Diaspora, you applied to yourself and the VC activity, what is strongly suggested to startups usually, like being agile, pivoting when necessary. So what is changing in the VC world?
Well, Diaspora Ventures is what we call today a rolling fund. And rolling funds are in the news right now. It's a very new kind of VC that just started, a few months ago, and we're very happy with Ilan to be to surf, this wave, to be one of the first one, to surf this wave. Uh, they're in the news, right now because they are changing many things in the VC industry. First, they are better than traditional funds because you can talk about them publicly. That's very when you create a traditional fund, you cannot talk about it, publicly. With a rolling fund, you can talk about it. So I'm talking about Diaspora Ventures with you, and I can do it. And other thing that is very interesting is that they are evergreen funds, meaning that you can raise money on an ongoing basis. When you create a traditional fund, usually what you do, you raise money. It might take sometimes, more than a year, to raise your fund, and then you're done and you deploy the capital you raised, maybe for during 4 or 5 years, And then the fund, lasts 10 years. And if you want to raise a new fund, you need to wait for the end of the first fund. And then you raise fund 2, fund 3, et cetera, et cetera. With a rolling fund, new LPs can join the fund every quarter. That means that you don't need to raise a lot of money at the beginning. You can start, with $100,000, for example, and every quarter you're going to bring new investors in your fund, and you're going to deploy this capital on an ongoing basis, meaning that the fund doesn't have an end anymore. So it's an evergreen fund that you can use, et cetera, et cetera. What is also very different is that LPs commit to a minimal commitment. For us, for example, is $12,500 a quarter. That is not a lot of money. So that is very interesting because we see a lot of a new category of LPs, people investing in your fund coming to us, that I call, the micro LPs. They can be, entrepreneurs, managers, executives that want to invest in technology, but they don't have a ton of money, to invest. And rolling funds are very interesting vehicles, for them, because they are very flexible and they can invest maybe just $50,000 a year and hunt, with us. So it's changing a lot of stuff. And also what is very interesting is all the back office and the middle office of rolling funds um, uh, are based on the software. Today, we're doing that with Angelis. Angelis provide you all the software. The middle office and the back office of a traditional fund is very, very complex and costs you a lot of money. With Angelis and with this platform, everything is managed as a software. So it's basically a fund as a service, and that's very interesting. So that will allow a lot of people like us to create their fund much in a much easier way, very quickly. And I think we're going to see a lot of new funds, very vertical funds on very specific niche being created, in the next months because of these rolling funds. We might see, for example, a fund only for women, for example, or Black women, or whatever. And it's very difficult to have traditional funds focusing on such kind of topics. But with rolling funds, we might see this kind of very specific funds on very specific topics. And we are one of them. We are a rolling fund with Diaspora Ventures focusing on French entrepreneurs in the US.
Talking about being agile, this is the definition of being agile. This was very, very interesting. And speaking of change, we're witnessing an incredible transformation in the way people work. Big tech companies announced that their workforce would stay in remote work until at least next spring or even next summer. This will have tremendous impact and consequences on big cities like San Francisco, where you are, on New York, where I am, and social consequences. Can you give us a perspective view on this, Carlos?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. And I think that the 2020s are the remote work decade. Everything is going to change. And remote is going to be the new normal. And it's going to have a lot of impact on our life. I think that the office as we knew it is dead. That's for sure. But I at the same time, I think that offices will remain, but it's just that they will be used less frequently and very, very differently. For example, one thing I think is that we will see popping up a lot of what I call micro co-working spaces. Maybe on every street, you will have a micro co-office space where people working at home can join on their street. And it's already the case today. It might be a Starbucks, today, but I think it would be, more structured tomorrow. I think also that this movement is gonna create what I call the city unbundling, because it doesn't make any sense. The cost of living, right now, and that's very true here in San Francisco, and I'm sure that it's the same, in New York, is totally irrational. If we are working remotely, why paying $7,000 or $10,000 of rent in New York or San Francisco? So I think that small nations will attract, remote workers, and maybe, by the way, at different moments of the year. So, for example, you might spend the winter in France in the Alps because you like skiing, and you're going to be there, maybe for 2 or 3 months, and then you might spend, the spring in Costa Rica, and the summer in Los Angeles, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to see a lot of this kind of thing going on. And I think it's not only that we are entering a work from home era, but it's really a work from anywhere, era. And that's going to introduce a lot of very interesting stuff.
So both of you and your partner, Ilan, have a podcast. We are in New York for Ilan and Silicon Valley for you. And it's very funny to see, like, here, we at Startup Vision, we're all entrepreneurs listening to, interviewing other entrepreneurs. Do you think only entrepreneurs can understand or maybe, listen to other entrepreneurs?
That's a very interesting question. I think that as an investor, I think that people, other funders want funders and entrepreneurs in their cap table. I think it's a trend, right now. They want funder in their cap table just because they have more empathy than anyone else would. So Ilan and I, we have more than 25,000 hours of being entrepreneurs combined, together. Of course, you can read books, but nothing compares, to the field of expertise we have as entrepreneurs, ourselves. And I think that there are numerous things that you won't understand if you haven't run a company yourself. And also, entrepreneur is not something that is finite. It means that you might have been a great entrepreneur 5 years ago, but what was true 5 years ago might not be valid anymore. So I think it's very important, as entrepreneurs, to be in the game, and we are playing the game every day. And I think that's why, founders or content creators like you have a better voice. I mean, that yes, you can read a journalist, but a journalist doesn't have this field of expertise that we have. And now we have the tools to communicate and have a voice and say what we've learned and share, our knowledge, and give access to us much more in a much more easier manner than before. And I think we are doing it. We are New York. The podcast we have with Ilan is exactly about that. It's really about to say, listen, we might not be in the press every day, but we have so much stuff, to tell you. And now we can take our mic and get online and share, our knowledge with you. And guess what? People love it. And we create a community around us, and we try to help each other. And it's not only about content, it's also about money. That's exactly what Diaspora. It's just kind of a natural next episode. We started, being entrepreneurs. We built a community. We share our knowledge. We share our network. And now also we want to help and invest money in your startup as well.
It's great. Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Carlos. Thank you for sharing those thoughts with us here on Startup Vision. And we will get back to you if you want, to have more analysis from you about Silicon Valley or other things.
Whenever you want.
Thank you, Carlos, for being with us.
Thanks for having me.